Painting 3. Sword. The theaters were struck first. It didn't happen overnight. The slow progression of years simply wore away at them, until one by one, the curtains came down and the doors were shut. It wasn't deliberate. I still don't think it was deliberate. It just happened. With the speaker's desire to innovate and push for progress, whatever progress meant, any skill that didn't meet those goals was pushed aside. Actors, playwrights, set designers, none of them made anyone live longer or life quicker. They didn't contribute to making tasks easier. Of course, people knew they made life better. Everyone enjoyed what they wrought. But better seemed lesser than easier, and so, without the respect they'd once been given, the time they needed to practice and hone their skills was squeezed. The storytellers were forced to no longer tell stories in anything other than their free time, which no longer seemed so free. With such disregard, theaters were forced to raise the prices of tickets in a desperate attempt to recuperate what was being lost. Inevitably, professional theater became a luxury few could afford. Only those whose talents and skills lent them towards the type of innovation the speaker had cultivated from the guild. Amateur theater lasted a while longer, but eventually, even they succumbed to the collapse of regard. The artists, those who had for so long painted the sets, when they could no longer paint, the theaters finally closed for good. As the speaker said, "What need is there for paintbrushes when we can print designs?" The paintbrushes vanished, the print designs were flat, and the theaters closed. Even now, I don't remember anyone ever speaking against the theaters, or those who used them as part of their trade. But there was no one outside of the theaters speaking for them. No one, except Morgaith, of course. Morgaith fought every cause because she saw them all part of the same whole. Something the rest of us realized too late. Her own trade was being crushed as well, but she never placed it before any of the others. It was perhaps her most admirable trait, and what now makes her so remarkable. It's funny how, even with everything that happened, the same lesson still plays out now. She no longer waited for the guild meetings to speak. She knew the speaker would never give her the opportunity to delve into her causes there, only ever the barest minute so they could pretend to give her causes a voice, then congratulate themselves for their generosity. Instead, Morgaith spoke in the city squares and on street corners, with no crowd and no one stopping to listen. Not at first, at least. "It doesn't matter if they don't listen," she told me, "only that they hear someone challenging this slow erasure." We had many conversations like it. When they do stop to listen, it's because they've started to notice, and that's all I want them to do. "What is one voice to 1,000?" she asked. "I can't change anything alone, so I have to make them care about this. How else will they ever have the chance to explore anything they really care about?" The speaker was the biggest problem. Morgaith could never argue against them, but then she explained how it wasn't about changing the speaker's mind. Their mind was set, and so was hers. They had to respect each other in that and let the audience hear their words instead, which was why the theaters closed. The day the last one shut its doors, Morgaith was furious. She didn't care about the play. Some old drivel that's as sentimentally classic as it is overworn, she called it. But she still wanted it to run. Philosophers and artists have the voices of challenge and social development for millennia. She paced across the bare floorboards of my apartment. Without the theaters, the drama schools had dismissed their students. They weren't the first to slow admissions, but it was the first time those already enrolled had been sent away. What better way to stave off revolt than to deny opportunities to develop understandings, she'd ranted. It was her most beautiful tirade yet. Wine sloshed from the glass in her hand as she gestured. A civilization without thought. A population unable to critique because they don't know how, because they've chosen not to learn. Who think learning is too damn difficult, so have given up the task without trying. The glass caught the wall and shattered. "Have you cut yourself?" I asked, rushing to clean it up. "Nothing some innovation can't heal," Morgaith laughed. After picking shards of glitter from her hand, I found a bandage for it. "What good is a longer life?" she murmured as I wrapped the gauze around her palm. "If only my flesh is nourished. This can't continue, Cora." She must have seen my alarm. She smiled and took my hand, even as blood stained the white fabric I'd wrapped. "What good is a longer life for any of us," she clarified, "when it is the only thing this innovation has given us at the expense of all else? My bones will exist with equal meaning above ground as below, and no one need ever mourn my passing, because it will mark no difference to my existence. I need the mechanics of life to stay alive, but we need the talents we few now have if any of us are to truly live." Of all the conversations I had with Morgaith, that was the one I've always come back to. She said no one would mark her passing, but I think that moment, something in her did die. I still don't quite know what it was, but when I saw her next, something had changed. Her voice was surer when she spoke to the people who now stopped to listen, but she never let a crowd gather. "A dozen people is enough," she would say before leaving. In those months, it became a game. Morgaith would speak and let the silence follow. It held a more determined air now, and wasn't until years later that I'd realized what she'd done. I always wonder if it really was from the conversations when she'd cut her hand. I think the seeds of it were sown before, but I never saw the shoots. I still can't. Some people say we grow and our dreams change with time. But I watched as Morgaith cut away those parts of herself she'd once protected. Never once did I hear her complain or cry for what she'd lost. Her gaze turned to steel, and she forged herself into what she needed to be to fight for what she cared for. Put like that, it sounds selfish, what she did. But selfish or not, she became the champion from the stories we were forgetting. Whatever else, she pledged herself to her cause that night, and she never strayed from her task, not even at her last breath. She became what the speaker had never expected, a resistance of creativity, wielding words with more precision than a sword. She struck at the very core of what the speaker had encouraged: innovation. "What is innovation without creativity?" Morgaith asked. "What is humanity without creation? But bereft of law, language, and joy, print falls flat without passion, and passion is all we are, even when we innovate. Who are we but the ones with the ability and skill to create masterpieces? Who are we but the ones to inspire others to such works?" The damage the speaker had done was slow to heal. Having been fooled once, people's minds were not so easily persuaded again. It was years later, decades, when a theater opened its doors again. I saw every show.